Hello, YouTube, you beautiful people, and the rest of you cunts. Oh, I didn't mean that, but we live in strange times. There are so many motherfuckers, right wing, Christian nationalist, schizophrenic, misogynist, window licking. But anyway, we're going to talk about geometry. I might mix in a bit of politics as well. Did anyone see Russell Brand? And what's his name? I forgot his name now. Oh, that Canadian dude on stage praying. I'm changing my focus on this channel. I'm talking about geometry. So sorry if I digress. I did get a like on my last video. Thank you, whoever that was. I think I know who it was though. Does anybody comment anymore? And let me say that again. Does anybody comment with anything intelligent anymore on YouTube? I scared all the window lickers away, didn't I? All those Christian nationalist fucking weirdos. That's my channel came into life through attacking Christian nationalism. I didn't even know it was Christian nationalism at the time. This was 9 years ago. I believe that the church heavily suppressed mathematical and geometry. It suppressed the sciences for so long, didn't it? And the trouble with evangelicals is, not all of them. I'm not bashing Jesus here. I'm bashing fundamentalist, people who fall for a religion. The ones that think everything else from Christianity, everything else, or anybody that doesn't believe in that, everything in the world is satanic. And then they prattle on about, occult symbolism and satanic symbolism. And when you try to point out, the truth of that with rational discussion, well, they just flip out. They can't handle it. The same people think they're under spiritual attack. They think they're being attacked by unseen forces, demons, imaginary beings. Do you know what? People who believe that have schizophrenia. It can be induced in different ways, but it is, that I'm just saying, guys, if you know anybody or you've suffered with that yourself, go and get help, please, because that's schizophrenia. Not having a foundational knowledge of geometry, you fail to miss symbolism that's in the occult and in religion, right? And lots of wolves in sheep's clothing, cult leaders, from that David, what was his name? David so-and-so from Waco, Texas, yeah. Because of a literal interpretation of the Bible, word for word translation, 100 people or how many people it was ended up dying messily, killing themselves. David Bass. Oh, another David. I don't know what he is. He's still prattling on about satanic symbolism. So anyway, I don't mean to ramble on. We left it the other day talking about the square root ratios. So I may have made a couple mistakes in that video previously. I listened to it once, playback, after I uploaded it, and I did say a couple of wrong words and say the wrong thing, but it was unintentional. This is unscripted. So we were talking about the square root ratios, the first three square root ratios. So I thought I'd pick it up off from there, do another off-the-cuff video. These videos probably won't stay up on my channel, because I'm going to go on and do edited videos with, pictures and everything. They take a long time, right? I can, the last AI video I did with commentary took me days to do. It's days of work, right? So, it's a big time sucker, and or time suck. And, so this is what, forever who is following, all 7 of you, 6, I'm not including Andy Crossman. You don't count, mate. Right? But, I'm trying just like... I didn't mean that, Andy. I'm just trying to, verbalise and help bring people to the page and point out a few things, right? And, it's stuff I missed at school. I'm a stonemason and a bricklayer, and there's lots of geometry. I just missed the basics at school, and I fell in love with the subject later on as an adult through an interest in architecture and ancient buildings and all of that, right? Symbolism. And I still am very ignorant when it comes to geometry. I'm a late bloomer in this subject. Anyway, I digress. Square root ratios. So the square root of 1 is the side in height of a cube, right? Or the breadth. So there's square root 2. There's a square root 1 is just the side of a cube, right? Or a square. We're looking at a 3-dimensional drawing of cubes. The 2-dimensional representation of this cube is a square. So the side of a square, that's a square root 1. If you draw a line through the diagonal of a square from point to point, and then if you was to swing that diagonal line down to the horizontal, that's a square root 2 ratio. And is there any on it? So yeah, there's the square root 2 ratio. So in relation to the cube, the internal diagonal from the opposite point to an opposite point in a cube is the square root 3 ratio, right? So here you can see the square root 1 ratio, which is just the side of a cube, or breadth or height. And then the bottom segment, you can see the square root 2, that diagonal going along the plane. But then in the world of 3 dimensions, the square root 3 ratio is represented within the cube, right? So that square root 3 ratio is from the vesica Pisces, right? So the square, I don't know how far up the square root ratios go. I suppose they could go on forever, couldn't they, really? I don't know that. So I think this diagram here goes up to the square root of 14 ratio. So the square root 14 ratio is expressed in, if you imagine 3 cubes long and 1 cube high, and so that's the square root 14 ratio. So anyway, let's move on. So yeah, this is the the Kabbalah tree of life. And it, so Metrodon's cube, right, comes from the tree of life. Again, a lot of evangelical commentators on this subject will gaslight you and say it's satanic, right? Or whatever, whatever, right? But like I said, and I have already said before, the Jewish Kabbalah has 10 points, and it's the Jewish Kabbalah is a two-dimensional representation. A plane it's a plane, 2 dimensions on the plane, right? But that like, the Kabbalah tree of life has a Greek alternative. That Greek alternative is called the tetratus. And so there's two, there are two systems that have a common origin, one being Hebrew and one being Greek. But there are so many comparisons, here's an interesting fact as well, right? In the Greek language and in the Hebrew language, the sounds of letters correspond to points on the tree of life. And that goes into the subject of geomantra. And the Greeks did the same. But they were slightly different systems, right? Different languages. They had a different way of doing maths, but there were lots of similarities as well, right? And most scholars will agree that both have a common ancestor, right? So there's that. What's this? Different types of graph. And I don't know what any of these are. So there's that. Again here, 2 cubes, one on top of the other, with square root ratios. With the square root ratios going up to 6. What else do we have to say about that? Yeah, lots of commentators to do with, wacky ones will like talk about the cube, right? And the matrix and all of that. But they're right that but these terms, matrix is a correct term to use, but the cube is not the shape you're looking for, guys. The shape you're looking for is from the isometric matrix, and that is the equilateral triangle. Anyway, I digress. There are lots of systems and graphs you can develop. A cubic graph is just as useful or useful in other ways as a isometric graph, which is, an isometric graph is the graph made out of, it's like a fishnet. It's like a fishnet, and it's made out of rhombuses from the vesica Pisces, right? This, right? So this is a picture of the 2-dimensional geometry of the icosahedron. Is it icosahedron? Sorry if I got that wrong. I've not even got my 5 platonic solids down. I mess it up sometimes, right? I'm learning. Right. So yeah, that's if you were to make this on paper, you unfold, you could make this shape out of these triangles. Those triangles are equilateral triangles, which is the point of this video. So excuse me if I made a major error and told you that the name of that platonic solid and it's the wrong name. Let's move on. Right. So here is, maybe this is a bit like above our pay grade, but this Oh look, it's got the vesica Pisces inside, so it's not. So the vesica Pisces, also known, the vesica Pisces is two circles overlaid that intersect at the middle of each circle. The vesica Pisces, for anyone that's not up to speed yet, is the fish shape that's made in by combining two circles, right? That's the vesica Pisces. In the vesica Pisces is a rhombus, and a rhombus is two equilateral triangles, right? I'm just going to keep grilling away at this until I start to get comments. So I'm just going to keep repeating myself, yeah? And like I say, this is just, off the cuff off the cuff chat. This is a diagram of the squared, it is the squared circle. It's not the best squared circle though. So I've mentioned the square circle. We're going to be building up to the squared circle geometry from Vitrivian man. But this isn't the best diagram to discuss this on. The flower of life, commonly known as the flower of life. There's nothing really special, in my opinion, about the flower of life. That anyone can pick up a compass and make one, right? So look, there's pictures I've seen pictures from the ancient civilization, of a flower of life, and I'm just like, it's all right, anyone can make one. A child can make one, but it's just not my main focus. I don't mean to dish people that are really into it. I just, I'm holding on at the moment to gain more knowledge before I, come out completely and say something definitive about the flower of life. I know it can be developed, this is my interesting point. It all develops from, my angle is, all develops from the vesica Pisces, which I think is where my main focus is at the moment. So, just excuse my ignorance at the moment with a lack of knowledge about the flower of life, because I'm yet to learn. But I do find it very fascinating. The isometric geometry is key, right, to, it is the matrix, right, in geometry. It's a lattice. It's a net, right? And, it is in my opinion, that the isometric geometry from the vesica Pisces, that the lattice that it makes, that's what I find so fascinating. It goes on to create, what could be interpreted as a matrix, right? And I'm not talking about, the film. I'm talking about matter and the geometrical structure of the two-dimensional geometry of the polygons, and then its development into Euclidean geometry, the shapes that make matter in the universe, from the micro to the macro. So I'm not going to get bogged down on the seed of life, or flower of life for now. I'm inclined to call it the tree of life, right? And it has got the tetratus in it. So let's stick, I'm not dissing, like I say, I'm not dissing the flower of life at all. I forgot what I was going to say then. Let's move on, because I'm waffling. Here's another stylized flower of life. It is an amazing thing, really, isn't it? I mean, the geometry. But anyway, right. So let's go back. Let's get back on point. The three main polygons, and not the three main polygons. The three main proportions. The first three proportions. The first proportion comes from the circle. The number 1 represents the circle. One is whole, it's perfect, and it means it's everything, right? One, it's whole. And the number that represents circle, well, a number that represents it is one, right? That's the first basic ratio, in geometry. The second basic ratio in geometry is a square, and there's no squares here, right? So there's a cube, right? So pi in our study, what we're doing for the sake of argument, sake of the argument, pi is the first ratio, but so is like the square root 1 ratio, right? So remember that side of the cube. If we imagine the width of the circle as measuring 1, right? And that's our basic unit that we're going to measure everything else from, and we're going to develop our system of geometry from. When you draw that first circle, the width of that circle is your unit of 1, and also 1 represents that shape, the circle. The circle being a two-dimensional representation of a sphere. A sphere is the most perfect shape you can make in geometry. It's flawless. So 1 represents the circle. And then the square root 2 ratio is represented by the square, right? We've been through that. And then the square root 3 ratio, we know, is contained within the cube as well, don't we, guys, right? Yeah, but it's about the rhombus. If you look at this cube here, in its isometric form, it has 3 rhombuses. So anyway, I forgot my point. The 3 rhombuses, right? A rhombus is 2 equilateral triangles. Anyway, the three main proportions, right, that we're discussing in this video. The square root 3 ratio is when you look at a rhombus, and there's a rhombus in the center here. The width of the rhombus compared to its length express that the length, if the width was 1, if the width of the rhombus was 1, and then its length, which is the longest point, its length from point to point, is the square root 3 ratio. Now, I know that's not going to, explain anything. I'm just grilling some stuff down, and we're gonna, I'm just on repeat here, yeah. I'm going to keep repeating about the 3 main proportions, because that's where we're at the moment. The first 3 proportions. So here again, a vesica pisces with the rhombus inside, the fish vessel. Often the vesica pisces is referred to a womb, because all other geometry unfolds from the vesica pisces in an isometric way. And isometric, geometry is pivotal to the matrix or lattice or net that is developed, to the seed of life or the flower of life. It all comes from the vesica pisces. But the most important shape is that rhombus, right? There are 2 rhombuses. A square is a rhombus as well, right? But this type of rhombus that you're looking at now, this 4-sided shape, is made out of 2 equilateral triangles. I always, it is a lens, right? In a way, you are looking at a lens. I don't want to sound weird or but it's a mathematical lens. It's a vector. all other, and it's the principal shape that all other geometry unfolds from into Euclidean geometry. And if you take, and all that's been developed in, you know, into systems of measuring time, developing the clock, measuring time, and you know, to the point now where we can measure the planet. But in fact, you know, the ancients measured the planet as well to quite an accurate degree, actually, very accurate. And then they built temples to encode that information. The Giza pyramid has the Earth's dimensions encoded in it. It's encoded in the squared circle, like I've mentioned before. But like, you know, I'm moving forward too quickly now. We're going to get that. It's a revelation. That is a revelation. The squared circle is a revelation. St. John had that revelation. Whoever St. John was, if he was a real person, right? But the story of St. John in the Bible, of having the vision on a top of a mountain or a hill or whatever, on an island, him having a vision of that city of Zion, New Jerusalem, coming down. That is the point of our that is our destination, that high vision in geometry. But we're gonna, you know, sorry guys, I'm not gonna go too much into that. We're gonna build up to that. Here, classic vesica Pisces. Why do you think a Trinity is, you know, Trinity is pivotal to the Christian religion? Sorry for my big pause. I'm contemplating. The two olive trees in the Bible is a geometrical allegory. Here you've got the two olive trees. You know, we'll go over I think we'll cover that in another video. But I learned this years ago in my research about the information about the, you know, the two trees in the Bible. There's a description in that part of the Bible of how to build the tabernacle, how to build the temple. So that, you know, the geometrical information in the Bible about building the tabernacle, the temple, is our story, right? It's a cosmology. The Bible's a cosmology, science a cosmology, right? It's ways of explaining the universe. But the temple and the tabernacle were built to be in harmony with the earth and God. So St. John's, you know, vision of the New Jerusalem, of a perfect city, God's ideal city, is a geometrical allegory. There's lots of geometrical allegories in the Bible. Genesis is one. The 153 fishes is one. The building of the tabernacle was one. I expect Ezekiel's vision is one. I haven't been through that recently, a long time ago though. St. John's, you know, John's vision of the cube, a round cube coming down from the sky, is a geometrical allegory. You know, scattered across churches all over Europe, all over the world, are this vesica Pisces. Yeah. Why do you think that Jesus was called the fisher of men? Why? Why is the Trinity so important? Why in every religion is there 12 disciples and one protagonist? I'm not saying religion. I'm not attacking Christianity. I'm not attacking people that believe in Jesus, because I don't know if Jesus was existed or not. He could have, right? But what I'm saying is the story that's written down in that Bible. You know, so either one massive. It could be a coincidence. It could all be, you know, coincidences. But I'm inclined to think that someone like, you know, someone that the Bible goes on about as Jesus. That wasn't his name, but like there was, I do believe we have had prophets, right, men of vision, that have been persecuted, right, by the powers that be. So Jesus could have been a real person. Whether I'm just not a literal word for word, what's in the Bible, I don't take it word for word literally. I think it's a shame how religion has been used to such evil ways. And I do wonder about, how much, geometry has been suppressed by the church. And I'm disgusted at the moment with white Christian nationalism. It's a Nazi ideology, isn't it? When America was colonized, it was done in the name of white Christian nationalism through Columbus and the Vatican. And there are still some Americans that believe that they are God's chosen people, and they're racist, and they're white Christian nationalists, and they think Trump is telling them the truth, and they're so far away from Jesus. And if you were to talk about this symbology, they'd think it was all satanic, wouldn't they? What do you think it means when you see a picture of someone pointing in the sky? We'll get onto that. We're going to leave it here today, though. Don't get gaslit by Dugpers on the internet. And so the top of this vesica Pisces represents, in geometry, the equilateral triangle that we've been discussing. This is the knowledge, this is the gnosis, this is the illumination, this is nous. God bless you all. Have a great day. See you next time on the other side.